Here.
Good.
Okay. So let's start our fundamentally our third session. We're still with the pretty much the individual, and we are sort of slowly edging into groups and teams, like I told you. So the course is divided into the individual, the group and the team, and the organization. So we are going to talk about a personality and values. And then we will talk a little bit about motivation. So that's the general idea for today. And yeah. So why do you think personality and values are important? Why should we be concerned with personality? It represents us. Okay. What else? What else? It shows what we are. Okay. Okay. One can predict how you behave in a situation. Guys online, any thoughts? How much experience or knowledge you have, depending on personality? Okay. Fair enough. So fundamentally, personality has been looked at in a pretty scientific manner, or in the modern sense, by two people. One was, of course, Carl Jung, and the other was Sigmund Freud. Both of them looked inwards. The Western world had been looking mostly outwards. These were the first set of people who started looking inwards. Of course, in India, we've been looking inwards for a long, long time. And they came up with constructs of personality. And for the first time, the American armed forces during the First World War tried to use an understanding of personality to select soldiers. That was sort of worked upon, and the Germans used it extensively during the Second World War to select their officers for the German army. And pretty much they said it was successful. And it has moved on. Today, corporates, it's a $1 billion industry where many corporates use psychometric testing or personality testing to determine what kind of people they want, what kind of a person will be their CEO, who will get onto their board, what kind of people they want in their organization. Of course, that has been to a certain extent contested, saying that it's not a great measure, but then it thrives. And we have different frameworks. Some of the more popular framework, a couple of the more popular frameworks are the MBTI, or the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. Myers and Briggs are a mother-daughter team, and the mother was fascinated by the boyfriend of her daughter, and because she saw that they were two very different people in what she thought were personality traits. And so she tried to come up with a framework along with her daughter in trying to determine what are personalities, what gets people to stay together or part, what gets people to work in teams or not, and so on and so forth. The MBTI is an excellent counseling tool. However, as a selection tool, it has been severely criticized, so you don't see too much. What you see is what is called as the Big Five, or 5 traits that have been used extensively in various selection processes. We'll look at those as we go along, and then we'll talk about a little bit about values and really what they mean and why are they important. So fundamentally, the point is that most people accept that humans today in work organizations are expected to operate in teams. And if you can't work in a team, then you're going to have a bit of a problem. And so we come up with various constructs. If you look at Google, Google has a selection process which tries to measure what is called as googliness. That is, they want some particular personality traits. And if you don't have it, then they say that you are not good enough to work with Google. So they call it googliness. And then you have the Indian Army, which also does several psychometric tests, which tries to determine whether you're good enough to, whether you are good enough to work with the Indian Army as an officer. And so several organizations come up with several kinds of tests in determining what kind of personality they want. So personality impacts your personality. We'll define it more clearly. Impacts what role you have within the team. Yeah. So I'll show you why and how, and how you interact with the rest of the team, and whether your values align with the team. So you can see that we have talked about the team fairly extensively. Yeah. So what role you have within the team, how you interact with the rest of the team, and whether your values, that is your core beliefs, what do you believe, your core values. Do you have any core values, any of you? Things that you hold are not negotiable, close to your heart. What are those? Anything? Being ethical is a core value you carry. What come what may, I will not cheat or bribe or do things. That's a core value. What else? So when you have strong core values, they can actually start affecting team dynamics. Yeah. So in many senses, if you don't have strong core values, maybe you're very adaptable, and you can adapt to most situations, right? But so for me, one of my strong core values is, of course, integrity, ethical behavior, family, also vegetarianism. Strong core value, non-negotiable. Yeah. So but the problem with core values are very good because they give you a moral compass, they give you a direction. But the problem is they can also get in the way of several things. So you should be a little careful. So I remember that, when survivors came out of the German concentration camps, Bergen-Belsen, Dachau, Odessa, and so on and so forth, people interviewed them. And one young person emerged alive, and reporters asked her, how did you survive these horrors that were put upon you? Several millions of people died. So she said that my parents told me, do whatever it takes to survive. There's no question of a core value there. Just do whatever it takes to survive. And she survived. So I just want to sort of make you cognizant of the fact, but all of these are good things, but when they go beyond a certain point, they might become a little bit of a obstruction to you. So what are some of the major things that people look for, or people expect young people to have as they sort of make their careers or look at jobs, look at leadership, and so on and so forth? What are some of the important traits that people are expected to have? What do you think? Let's have a brief discussion on that. Suppose you were set to define 4 or 5 things that people should have as they go forward the next 50 years. What do you think are those? Okay, discipline. They should tech savvy, very good. Tech savvy. Anything else? Morality, okay. Okay. Adaptability, very good, okay. So they did a study and they found that most people agreed on 4 or 5 things. One was, of course, curiosity. You need to be curious. You need to try to ask questions as to why something happens the way it happens, and why doesn't something happen the way it should be happening, and so on. So you should be very questioning. So curiosity, or the ability to ask questions and learn all the time, is, they say, is a fundamental trait for the next 50 years, what's required. The second one is, like our friend said here, adaptability. Can you adapt yourself to most situations? Or you're so rigid that you're going to break sooner than later. The third one is, very importantly, is adversity. Can you really absorb tough situations and bounce back? Adversity, or the ability to, and all of us are going to get difficult situations in our lives. Yeah. And the fourth one is your ability to communicate clearly to other people. And I'm not talking about English here. Yeah. Your ability to communicate and understand emotions, moods, and various other things, language, nuances, tone of the voice, customs, culture, and so on and so forth. And lastly, your a good understanding of the digital world that we live in. Not tech savvy exactly, but the digital world. So they say that unless you are pretty good at all these five, you're going to have a problem. Your growth is not going to be great across jobs and industry. So this I keep telling to my MBA, full-time MBA class as well. I don't know how much they understand, but there is a problem with curiosity. So, for example, I was asking my colleague, one of my colleagues here is a professor. He spent his full engineering days in the city of Chicago, and he now has joined us as assistant professor. So I was asking him, do you know why the Chicago airport, the O'Hare airport, is named as O'Hare Airport? And he said, no, I don't know. So there is the problem. You've done your entire education in a city, and you don't try to figure out obvious things. It's a very interesting story. So because Butch O'Hare was an American Air Force pilot, and he shot down several German planes during Second World War, and a he was an ace. If you shoot down more than 10 planes, you're called an ace. And eventually he was shot down and killed. And the rather large Chicago airport is named after O'Hare. But that's not the interesting story. O'Hare's story is very important and very inspirational because his father was a gangster, and his father worked with the Italian mafia. And when he wanted to leave, he was gunned down on the streets of Chicago. He was shot and killed. And his family was put under great misery, hardship, and so on and so forth. From there, this guy joined the US Air Force, became a pilot, and he's an inspirational story. But the fact that I'm talking about is not about O'Hare, but about curiosity. Do you have the mental energy to ask? And it requires energy. Let's not mistake it. Yeah. Why do so many people, as they get older, I'm a strong believer in that. I believe that as people get older, they lose mental and physical. They don't only lose physical energy, they also lose mental energy. So the ability to think and curiosity is gone, right? And then we talked about, of course, adaptability. Are you really adaptable? Are you able to take adversity and then absorb it and bounce back? Are you able to communicate? Do you understand communication? Do you understand emotional intelligence? Do you understand empathy? Do you understand what other people are going through, and so on and so forth? And eventually, the last one is, do you understand how the world is digitizing around us? Things like cryptocurrency and so on and so forth. And so ask yourself these questions. The other day, uh, I had a PhD interview, and it was going very well. There was this lady who wanted to join as a professor, full PhD, 20 years in academia, associate professor. And very good, all good. My last question to her was, I said, today the rupee to the dollar is 79 rupees. You wake up tomorrow morning, it has miraculously become 50 rupees. How is life for the normal Bangalorean affected? And she went all over the place, collapsed eventually. books are good, you need to be able to answer questions like, how does it impact us in terms of, you know, in everyday life, and what happens? Yeah. So if you're not curious, please dredge up the energy and start asking questions and having a new look at life as to how different things can um, impact you, right? So any questions anybody has? I assume no. Okay. So what is personality? Personality is a dynamic concept describing the growth and development of a person's whole psychological. It's a dynamic concept, right? The sum of ways in which an individual reacts to and interacts with others. So you not only react to, you also interact with others. The problem with personality is that it's very difficult to change. Once you are set with a kind of personality in your young days, it sort of seems to come with our DNA. You are going to have a, you're going to be stuck with it. And we look at what are some of those personality traits, but it's very difficult to change. You can moderate it maybe to some extent if you really know. And I think Professor Sanjay has put up a test. You can take that test and then see how your um, what kind of personality you have. And if you know, maybe you can't change it too much, but you can sort of moderate it. Yeah. For example, if you are, yeah. So, if you are, say, one of the traits of personality is, are you extroverted or introverted? And if you're introverted, what are you extroverted? Are you an extroverted person or introverted person? You like to go to parties and meet people and all. Then you're introverted. Huh? Friends and okay. What about the rest of you? Yeah, so it's very difficult to suddenly become extroverted. It puts enormous stress. But you can understand that you're introverted. Maybe you may not like to take a role as a salesperson where you have to go and interact with several people and so on and so forth. What do you do for life? So there is a little bit of a dichotomy. That's what I said. So when I uh, brought it here, what role do you have in the team? So generally, it is suggested that take sales and marketing jobs if you are more extroverted. Yeah. So if you had gone to a psychometric test when you were a young boy, somebody might have given you that kind of advice. And of course, you might have still made a success of it by being introverted. For example, people like Steve Jobs are very introverted people. Yeah. Gandhi was a very introverted person, but they reached out to other people and overcame that, as long as you understand what drives you. So, importantly, personality is the sum of ways in which an individual reacts to and interacts with other people. Yeah. So, what you should be aware of is what is personality and what kind of measurement tools are available to sort of make some kind of an assessment, because you don't want very different kinds of personality characters in a team. You can actually have conflict of value systems and personality. Suppose everybody is an introvert and you have one extroverted person, you can have a little bit of a clash and so on and so forth. Or at least you want to understand what kind. So for example, if you're selecting for the armed forces, what kind of, tell me some personality traits that you might look for. Suppose you're selecting an officer in the army, one personality trait that you would look for. And don't tell me discipline and following rules. Okay. What else? Physical fitness, not personality. It's accountable. Okay. What else?
Punctuality.
Punctuality. My friend, if you're not able to speak, you just wasted 2 years of your MBA life. You'll have to say something. Yeah. What is one personality trait that you would look for? Now, punctuality and so on are habits. you develop a habit to be punctual. Yeah, they're not personality. Why is it so difficult? Hmm? Adaptability for an armed forces soldier? Yeah, maybe okay. Yeah, you came close. You came close, but didn't use the right terminology. So we will let it be for the moment. We'll move on. Yeah, and I will show you some of the big 5 personality traits, and then you can come back and identify. So, is personality the result of heredity or environment? Most people believe that it is comes from our parents, grandparents, ancestors, and so on and so forth. So it is genetic. Yeah. So that is why it is very difficult to change. You're born with a set of personality traits. So early research tried to identify and label enduring personality characteristics in the sets shy, aggressive, submissive, lazy, ambitious, loyal, and timid. Um, these were the days around which Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud were doing their research, and then we have moved on. So, you have several people. So, there's a gentleman called Rorash who came up with what is called as the Rorash ink blot test. You don't see it too much in the circles that you move, but this test is simple. Rorash used to throw some ink on blotting paper, close the blotting paper, open it, and you would get and he would ask the person in front of him, what do you see here? What do you see here? Guruji, what do you see here? Something like a cat in the middle. Okay, very good. Huh? 2 lions. Okay. Anybody else? He said lion, so you said tiger. Excellent. Huh? What else? You say cockroach. Very good. Okay. You see a butterfly kind of a thing. Okay. Many people
Person
see
with
the
a
moth.
violin or a pipet on the top.
What is that? Violin, is it?
Yeah, playing violin on the top or pipet. Uh,
Okay. Okay, Ja. Somebody is playing a violin. Okay. What else? 2 horses. Very good. 2 horses. That's it. Does anybody seeing? Does anybody see, say, um,
uh, there
uh,
is, I don't know. I mean, maybe
go ahead. Go ahead. Take a shot. There's no right and wrong here.
there is I don't know. Means how do I say? The person is just under the lion. There on both sides there are persons on
Okay.
person with
Yeah.
a cap or a hat sort of.
Okay. Here. Okay. There's a person with a cap or a hat below the lion. Great. The cat also looks, yeah, it looks pretty much like a cat in the middle. Good. So, does anybody see, say, um, from a scene from the Ramayana where Ravana is carrying away Sita? You could. Yeah. So the Rorash ink blot test was very popular, fundamentally to detect mental illness. Yeah, it's very popular because when people are going through severe depression or people are on the verge of a mental breakdown or have broken down, they see things that other people don't see. And if you go to Nimhans and complain that actually you're losing your mind, you might come across a Rorash ink blot test. It is a very popular psychometric test, which generally normal people, or we don't know what is normal and abnormal, but we assume that all people are normal here, are not put through. Yeah, are all of you normal? At least we think so. So, and then of course you have variations in color and so on and so forth, shown to children, and they come up with a answer to this. And then the psychologist tries to decipher what you or he has said. So That's the row rash ink blot test. And then you have, which is again very popular. Again, you may not have come across it because corporates don't use it too much. What is called as a thematic apperception. It's not appreciation. It's called the apperception test or TAT. And you would have come across this had you gone to an armed forces selection. Yeah. So the idea is very simple. The idea is you're shown a card like this. You have to look at the card for about 2 minutes and you have to write a story for 3 minutes. You have to tell the person, what do you see? What do you think is happening? And how the story will end. So take a shot at it. What do you see? What do you think is happening? And how will this story end? I'll give you a couple of minutes. Write a short story, please. There's nothing to think about too much. Whatever comes into your head, you write. Yeah, there's no right and wrong with personality. It's about it. That's it. No. Yeah. Section A. This. You can sit here also. Same thing happens. Pretty much. Write your story. Guys online, I'm going to ask you at random. So Geeta KM, what do you think? What do you see here? What do you think is happening? How does this story end? Are you there, Geeta KM? Abhilash, Abhinash.
Yeah, so actually, here what I could depict from the picture is it is a evolution of life. Like a very beautiful lady can, when time passes, she comes to her, I mean, aged life where things, people around him changes, their behavior or perception towards her. Uh, I could depict that over a period of age.
How does it end?
Uh,
So you went off at a metaphysical angle. Anybody else? Any simple story that you could put together from this?
Uh, Capital, I would think there are, in my perspective, there are two stories which is coming up in my mind.
Okay.
One is the young person; he's just remembering his mother, okay, and he's into it, how she was, and in that part, and ultimately because he lost her, so he's in a sad mood. So that
Okay.
is one end, okay, and
How
another
does it
one.
end? How does it end, Nirmal?
Uh, the gentleman, he feels sad because he lost his mother and those
So
all things,
does
and
this
how
gentleman commit suicide, jump off a bridge,
No, I don't think that way it goes. But he's sad.
He's sad. That's all. He's
Yeah.
sad, and maybe he goes and goes
Uh-huh.
and gets binge drunk or something.
Maybe we can go ahead with that. And another story, what I feel like, he's a young man, and he thinks like, what will happen, how I'll be when I'm old, when I grow old, because we can resemble that the same it is face, and with
But
that
he's feeling happy when he grows old, or he's feeling sad.
he's he's in a he's a happy person.
He's happy. So very interesting, because many people identify this young person as a lady. You have identified the person as a man.
Gentleman. Okay.
Good, good, good. Very good. Thank you. I think you started off well. Anybody else? Anybody?
It looks like the old lady is recalling her younger days.
Okay.
How confident and achieved a lot in her life.
Okay.
Basically, ending is she's happy that she lived the life the way she wanted to. That's what shows in her face as well. Quite contented and smiling.
Okay. Okay. Very good. And how does it end?
It ends
Happily. Happy ending. Anybody else?
Yeah.
One second online. 1 second. Yeah. Vikram and Betal story. Okay. 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 Very nice. Okay. And who's the Vikram and who's the Betal? Okay. You have some racial tendencies, racist tendencies. Okay. Online guy. Tell me.
Yeah. So for me, it is like a mother and son duo who actually recently lost the sole breadwinner for their family in a civil war situation in their country, and they are worried about how they're gonna uh, uh, live during this situation, and how to come out of this situation. So probably they are looking forward for some good job opportunities which can drive their family, like that kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you, Sina. Anybody else? Okay. So fundamentally, how the thematic apperception test is done is that you have 21 cards. The first 20 cards have figures like this. They're fairly standardized. And if you go along, you will see that this is another card, which you will see. Very interesting. You can write several stories on this. Yeah. And then, so some people say the man has murdered the woman. Some people say she died of old age. He's very much in love. So you can have different interpretations of pictures. You'll have 20 pictures. The 21st card is blank. It will turn up. You have to write a story from your own imagination on the blank card. And then trained psychologists will sit and assess your stories. Very, very popular with the Indian Army, Indian Armed Forces. You cannot get selected without going through a full scale thematic apperception test over an hour. And this is given a lot of how much ever physical, um, you know, tasks you can perform, or how well you speak English, or do the group discussion or the interview. You flunk the thematic apperception test, they will send you home. And there's a good reason. I understand why they're looking at personality, because they want certain kind of people to join as an officer of the Indian Armed Forces, either the Army, Navy, or the Air Force. Yeah. So that was a thematic apperception. And then we come to the more, the less exciting, the more questionnaire kind of test, like the MBTI. I told you the Myers-Briggs type indicator test. It sort of comes up with 16 variations of a person. You can either be extroverted or introverted. You can be sensing or intuitive. That is, you sensing or intuitive is that you bring your senses into play carefully before you sort of make a choice or a decision. Intuitive is my gut told me so and I just went with it. I married this lady because I felt it was love at first sight. That is very intuitive. Yeah. How much of money my father-in-law has got is sensing and thinking. Yeah? So you can have different kinds of personalities. No right and wrong again. Yeah, you should get out of the habit of trying to label everything as right and wrong. Most of life lies in gray areas. Whatever works, works for that particular situation. And then, of course, thinking or feeling. Thinking is, again, you cold calculations, use of data, dissect data, and feeling is more, again, your emotions and moods. And, how do you bring personality and how do you bring um, those factors into play rather than, just looking at cold data to make a decision. And perceiving or judging, that is, again, you use perception, um, where you bring in your attitude and several things you have learned in the past, your perceptions of people, things, and so on and so forth. And or judging is, so for example, my wife does not like to fly Lufthansa. The reason being because she doesn't like to go to Frankfurt because she thinks all Germans are rude people. Yeah, they're not. I have commanded German ships, so I know. Yeah, but that is her perception. Can't change it very easily. Yeah, so perceiving or judging, and then you can have different combinations. So if you look at and they say that INTJ are visionary. INTJ is, say, people like Steve Jobs. So I is introverted. Yeah. N is intuitive. T is thinking, and J is judging. If you have this combination, then you can assume that the person might actually become a visionary. Somebody, people like Steve Jobs and so on. If you look carefully, do a psychometric test, you will find that they are INTJs. Organizers are ESTJs. So E is extroverted, they can be sensing, they can be thinking, and then they can be judging. So you can come with different kinds. So what kind of a job role do you have? Do you want to have a CEO who's a visionary? Then do a psychometric test and come up with an INTJ. Like I told you, the MBTI is generally not used for job selections, but it's a brilliant counseling tool. You can counsel people. So my friend, if you had gone as a small boy for a psychometric test and they put you through the MBTI, they would have found out they would have given you 4 traits, and then they would have said that maybe you should choose these. It's a kind of a big industry out there. A lot of people do it. They say, we will advise you on what careers your children can have. Maybe they will charge you 500 rupees. You go through a psychometric test, and then they will sort of tell you your kid should not become a sales and marketing person. He or she should become a professor. Yeah, based on some findings of a psychometric test. Again, validity and reliability are, we don't know. What is validity and reliability? So how do you select people in your organization?
One is, of course, technical skill, what they should have minimum that qualification. Once it is done, then we check for their attitude. Are they good team players? Are they flexible enough to work? Those things. But
What about you, madam? How do they select people? You never selected. Okay. You were selected somewhere. You work somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what is interesting is if you select, say, 10 people out of a list of 50 people, say 500 people applied, you called 50 people for an interview, you selected 10 people. Normally you rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And from 11th, you don't call them you don't place them in your company, but you place these 10 people on a rank basis. What is normal to assume after this? When you selected 10 people and you put them into your company, what is a normal thing that a normal sane person would assume? Number one guy is the best. At the end of 1 year, when you carry out an appraisal, you find that the number one guy has outperformed everybody else. Is that the case? Most of the time, no. That means there is something wrong with your testing process. Yeah. So that is what is called as reliability and validity. Are you actually collecting the right data in making a, and many people are collecting the wrong, they're dealing with the wrong parameters. Yeah. So uh, reliability and validity of tests are very, very important. Yeah. So the big five, this is a very popular test. This are, so when somebody talks about personality, they're talking about the big five model. Yeah. So what are the big five? It is extroversion. Are you extroverted or introverted? Are you agreeable? What is agreeableness? No. Agreeable. Are you generally pleasant, friendly, or are you quarrelsome? If somebody tells you good morning, what do you say? So you can also say, what's so good about this morning? Or you can give him a dirty look and walk on. That is disagreeableness. Yeah. So agreeableness is how friendly you are, how affable you are, do you really get along with other people, and so on and so forth. Again, very important to a lot of organizations. You can't be quarrelsome. And um, your conscientiousness. Conscientiousness is your uh, responsibility. How responsible are you? I mean, suppose you have, how responsibly do you take your job? Just 1 minute. Yeah, guys, I'm just taking a quick minute's break, please. Right. What were we talking about? Conscientiousness. Conscientiousness is, are you really responsible? So again, when you go to say jobs like to become a naval captain, or you want to become an airline pilot or a fighter pilot, or you want to become the CEO of a company, or you want to become a doctor. So a trait that is very carefully looked at is, what is your level of responsibility? Do you really own that job? Do you really care? Are you involved? Yeah. And if they find that this conscientiousness level is low, you're not going to make it to those kind of jobs. You can go and do other jobs. Nobody has a problem. But if you have a problem with conscientiousness, it's not consciousness, okay? It is conscientious. So all this ethical behavior, integrity, ability to stay with a problem and solve it, all come with conscientiousness. Then you have emotional stability. That is, again, very important. You don't want a pilot who sort of feels like crashing the plane every second day. Again, the armed forces look very carefully at emotional. You crack under pressure. We apply some little pressure and you sort of start buckling. Yeah. So emotional stability is again something very important. And for a lot of people like you, openness to experience. That is, can you learn new things quickly? Which is a very important trait in industry today, because things are changing so quickly. Technology is changing, management ways are changing, paradigms are changing. So can you learn quickly, or you're so set in your ways? I don't want to change. I don't care what's happening around me. This is how I am. And you can, there are people like that also. Yeah. But these are the big five model, and that is kind of extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, emotional stability, openness to experience. Yeah. Any questions here?
So it says extrovertedness, but not checking whether you're extroverted or not. They're just checking whether are you an extrovert or an introverted.
Yeah, but they have implications. They have. So suppose you're extroverted. Yeah. Uh, so for example, and I keep repeating this story. Uh, Many organizations have certain norms and rules that you may not be aware of. So, for example, an organization can have a system where every Friday evening they party, and people are supposed to drink and have a good time. Suppose you are not the type. Is it a problem? It definitely is. For that person, you're not going to be allowed to hang around for too long, I can assure you. Yeah, you're a big introvert in an extroverted team. It is going to be a problem. Yeah. So if you look at the armed forces too, most people are a little extroverted. So there is pretty much an unwritten rule that you can't become the chief of the armed forces unless you are married. You can't be a bachelor and become the chief of the army, navy, or very small exceptions are there, but generally you can't. So they have certain norms or rules based on personality traits, right? So generally if people select for sales jobs and marketing roles and so on and so forth, front facing roles, hotel receptionist, would you want an extroverted or introverted person? You would want an extroverted person. So it's now, since we talked about it, it's pretty obvious. Yeah. You don't want an introverted person who's always reading a book, sitting quietly by themselves. They have other roles to perform. There's also a pretty strong correlation between introversion and conscientiousness. Quieter people seem to be more responsible. So there is some good thing that came out of it. Yeah. Suppose we want to select an airline pilot. Say Indian Airlines wants to select a pilot, and they're doing a psychometric test. What traits would you give this person? Would you give him? Would you want an extroverted pilot? Not necessarily. Who bothers? Why do you want? Why did you say yes? You didn't say. You said no. So why do you want an extroverted pilot? He's sitting and flying the plane by himself. Would you want agreeableness? I mean, he should be friendly with everybody. Maybe yes, sir. Would you want a conscientious pilot, highly responsible? Definitely yes. Would you want emotional stability? 100% yes. Would you want openness to experience? That is their learning ability to learn. Answer is yes. Yeah. So you can see that. Suppose we are looking for somebody who has all five. What do you get? Superman. Several ways. Um, so one of the roles of a CEO, say, is to meet other people. So this guy, Infosys fellow, this Mohandas Pai, he has become now one of the advisors to, he might have invested also in the Manipal group. First couple of years, what he did was every, say, second or third day, he would invite a CEO of a company, Manipal Education, I'm talking about. He would invite a CEO of a company, CHRO, have dinner with them at the Taj or at the Leela Palace or something. He was networking. He brought a lot of value to um, the Manipal group, Manipal Education, which is pretty good. Do you think it's important? Suppose you have a CEO who says, no, I don't want to do all this. I will go home at 4 o'clock and do puja and then spend time with my wife at home. Does it really work? In a corporate setting, as the role of a CEO, it may not work. Yeah? So you can have a big impact on with your personality, particularly as you keep rising. As you go into small, low-level positions, what is more important are your functional skills. But when I talk to you about 5 things, did I talk about functional skills? Nobody really is interested. How you code Java, Giva, and all. That is when you get selected. Yeah. But as you rise in an organization, they're more interested in your larger personality traits, job attitudes, what other things you bring to the table, and so on and so forth. For example, don't go and join a scientific organization unless you are. Don't say I'm going to be your chief innovative officer. And then you are not open to experience. You don't want to learn anything new. You don't want to learn anything new. Please go and work in more supermarket in the cash counter. Good job. Nobody's asking to learn anything new. Hang around over there, look at other people, and so on and so forth. But if you want to innovate, if you want to be creative, you want to give new ideas, you want to strategize, and you want to reach those high levels of an organization, you better be open to. So how do you spend your spare time? So next time, go and learn, say, Japanese. You know Japanese? Enroll for a course. So we're going to introduce some courses: Japanese, German, and Kannada. People can enroll and learn them for not too much of money. Professional certificate by online. I'm not saying you should enroll here. Go and do something different. Yeah. Get new experiences. Very important, particularly for young people, because the brain starts networking. I mean, the brain neurons in the brain start developing new pathways and segues and so on and so forth, which is very much required. Okay, so we talked about the big 5. So some of the most important traits to companies today seems to be persistence, attention to detail, efficiency, analytical skills, setting high standards, and so on and so forth. Yeah. Flexibility, adaptability, and so on are not so important. And like we say, some companies may want more of this, less of that, and so on and so forth. Setting high standards and things like that. It just as an indicator. So, okay, you can have a look at it as you have the PPT. Just trying to explain the big 5 traits. Why is it relevant and what does it affect? So as an indicator, you say emotional stability. Why is it relevant? Less negative thinking and fewer negative emotions, less hyper vigilant. You become, you know what's hyper vigilant? You're all the time worried who's going to get you, who's doing politics. Why did this guy call me now? Yeah. Why did my Vice Chancellor called me and I'm worried. I'm distracted. I can't take the class anymore. Your hyper vigilant comes from basic insecurity, right? So if you don't have emotional stability, that is, you become this. Higher jobs and life satisfaction are affected, lower stress levels, and more adaptable to change if you are emotionally stable. Yeah, and so on and so forth. Extroversion, openness. So openness enhanced leadership. You can more easily take leadership positions. Agreeableness is lower levels of deviant behavior, higher job performance because you get along well in a team and with people. Conscientiousness is higher performance, enhanced leadership, greater longevity. Yeah? So the big five is found to be a fairly solid framework to sort of assess personality of people along those five traits, and then tell us how they affect, and whatever job that your company is looking for, you can see whether you want these people or don't want these people. Again, there is no need for anxiety. You don't have to take this as, when I was a small boy, I learned a little bit of palmistry. There's a book called Kiro's Palmistry. So Kiro is an interesting guy. He came to India in the turn of the century. He went to Varanasi, and he says he met a chap called Joshi. Joshi is a very common name in North India, and he learned palmistry from a book that was made from the skin of humans. This is Kiro's in America story, and then he wrote several fantastic books which were bestsellers, and it's still a pretty solid if you want to learn some basic palmistry. So I found that, so for me, what was very interesting when I was growing up is I found several these kind of books at home, and I would randomly read them on a Saturday afternoon, on a Sunday, in the evening, and so on and so forth. My parents never stopped me. They said, "Don't read this palmistry; it's a waste of time." So they allowed me to read, and so I started becoming an amateur palmist. And then look, and then say, "Arey, this line should have actually been something else, but it's longer, shorter. Maybe should have gone in this direction." And then I used to get worried a little. Yeah, but that's how it is. Your lines are your lines. Your personality is as long as you're aware of what your personality traits are, I think you can sort of start working on them. And then you have the dark triad. So one is, of course, the Machiavellianism. Machiavellianism is the degree to which an individual is pragmatic, maintains emotional distance, and believe that ends justify the means. You find several people like this in your office. Rock solid, focused, they rise rapidly because they are very clear about their goals. They're pragmatic people. They don't care if your feelings are hurt or something like that. Yeah. How did it come? Machiavellianism. It is written by a guy called Niccolo Machiavelli. He was a Italian nobleman, and he wrote this book called The Prince. And it's a thin book, very interesting. But for me, this is Mickey Mouse stuff. Niccolo Machiavelli, and what he wrote is Mickey Mouse stuff. The real Machiavellian was Chanakya. If you read the Arthashastra and delve into it, a very interesting story just to tell you about how he thought. All of you have heard of Chanakya, right? So apparently Chanakya was the advisor to Chandragupta Maurya. Yeah, and Chandragupta Maurya's son was
Bindusar.
Bindusar. Correct. So they say that uh, uh, so Chandragupta Maurya actually, once he gave over his kingdom to Bindusara, he came to Karnataka, present day Shravan Belagola, and he fasted unto death eventually. He meditated with his guru, and then, so recorded history, you can go and see that spot when you go to Shravan Belagola next time, Hassan district, and where the Gomateshwara statue is there. Yeah. So he passed away. Chandragupta continued as the prime minister, and it is said that one day somebody told the king that is Bindusara, that you may not be aware, but this fellow, this prime minister of yours, killed your mother. And the king was taken aback because he had never heard this story. And he sort of was very angry. And somebody came to Chanakya and said, the king is very angry with you. If he gets his hands on you now, your life is over. Yeah? So Chanakya actually left, it is said, ran for his life, disappeared, and came back after a few months when he heard that the king had calmed down. And he said, so the king asked him, did you kill my mother? He said, yes. So the king was even more taken aback. He said, you killed my mother and you're saying yes? What's the story? So he said, the story is as follows. The queen was expecting you. You were about to be born. The kings those days were injected with small amounts of poison through their food every day to make as an antidote against poisoning. So every day the king took a little bit of poison to develop immunity. And one day his breakfast had been laid on the table. The queen comes along, thinks this looks very attractive. She doesn't know that the meal has got poison and eats some. Now she is endangering herself. More importantly, she's endangering whom? What is the baby? The baby is the future of the Mauryan Empire. Yeah. So Chanakya has her killed, the baby extracted. Maybe that was the first cesarean operation. And Bindusara lived and became a great king. Very, very Machiavellian. So he knew the king, he knew the queen well. Maybe he knew her very well. But did it come in the way of sparing her life? No, because the kingdom was more important. The goals are more important. His job is more important in protecting the Mauryan Empire. So you'll have people like that. Machiavellianism is a very important thing. You will always run into people. They are difficult to deal with because they are very clear in their head what is to be achieved and how it is to be achieved. Narcissism is again an important trait. Narcissism is I'm the best. I don't care who you are or what you bring to the table. Either you follow me or you. So I'm going to write my next leadership article is about narcissism. It's about a guy called Idi Amin. Have you heard of him? So Idi Amin was a cook in the British Ugandan army. And then he became a boxer and represented British Uganda at the Olympics. He didn't win a medal, but he was good. So the British took notice of him. He became a junior officer in the army. Slowly he became a senior officer. He became a dictator. And Idi Amin was, once he became the dictator, he's a very interesting fellow. Those days, Uganda, the economy was generally controlled by whom? Gujus. Yeah. So a lot of Gujaratis had gone to Uganda as traders. They followed a lot of Punjabis. Punjabis had gone there, taken by the British to build the Ugandan railways. So the Punjabis were there, the Gujaratis followed, and the Gujaratis by and large controlled the Ugandan. And Idi Amin one day made an announcement saying that all Indians have 3 days to leave this country. Otherwise, we don't guarantee your safety. So every single Indian Ugandan ran for his life and went away to different. Britain took several of them. Some came back to India and so on and so forth. Some went to America. Now the problem here was that what do you think is the outcome of this? So people told Idi Amin, you are doing a crazy thing. So what do you think is the outcome of chasing away all your people who control your business? The economy collapsed. The economy collapsed and now he did not know what to do. So he calls his finance minister and says that print notes. So his finance minister said, Your Highness, I can't print notes. It will lead to inflation. So he says, he took out his pistol and put it to his head and said, will you print notes or shall I get a new finance minister? So he printed and there was humongous inflation. You understand what's inflation? Inflation today in India is about 7% maybe. It can go to 1,000% in some countries. 1,000% means to buy a loaf of bread, you need one big suitcase of notes. You understand? So money has lost its value. The amount of notes circulating in the market is so large, but the goods are so small that you need more and more notes to buy some service or a product. So eventually, of course, he became mad, Idi Amin Dada, and he did other crazy things. The Tanzanian army, I think, invaded, kicked him out. He ran away to Saudi Arabia, and he died there in a warm bed, looked after well, after having killed several people in his own country and causing great misery. The point is that if you have narcissistic traits, and a lot of people in senior levels have narcissistic traits, that is, it's my way or the highway. Small amounts of narcissism is good because it keeps you aligned. But when it goes out of control, it becomes, as a personality trait, it becomes problematic. And you have several people like that who actually stop caring about the small things because I am Adolf Hitler, Stalin, Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong, all people who actually lost touch with reality, very, very narcissistic. You can also have, so another narcissistic character who did well was a guy called Lee Kuan Yew. Who's Lee Kuan Yew? Modern Singapore. Yeah? He was very clear. You didn't agree with him, you can just go home. But he did some good. Today, Singapore is one of the better economies in the South Asian region, yeah, the ASEAN region. So narcissism and of course psychopathy. You know what's a psychopath? Psychopaths are people who will do anything to get there. So very interesting. I don't know. I asked this story. Some of you may be aware of it. So the story goes like this, just to give you an illustration of what is a psychopath. So there is this two sisters. Did I tell you the story before? There are two sisters. Both are very pretty. Their mother has died. And so there is a funeral. And during the funeral, one of the sisters sees a very handsome young man. And she wants to know him. She's attracted to this guy. And she wants to meet him. But by the time the funeral is over, that guy is gone. And she's distraught. She's troubled. She wants to meet this fellow and know him better. What do you think she should do? How should she mitigate this situation? So a normal person would think about it. A psychopath doesn't waste too much of time. So this girl figures out that this man must have come because she knows her sister. Yeah. And it's most likely that she knows a sister. Where did she come? She came for a funeral. So if she kills her sister and has another funeral, the man will come again. So that is how psychopaths think. And it is said that 1 out of 100 people is a psychopath. So if I have 100, your full class here, one of you is definitely a psychopath. Yeah, and you may run into them in your workplace, office, and so on and so forth. And they can actually cause. So it's a horrifying story, but that's how psychopaths think. Yeah. So these are the dark sides of abnormal personality traits, and obviously you want to keep them out of your workplace because they can cause severe damage. Yeah, and that's why you have psychometric tests and so on and so forth. And then they came with several other tests like traits that can derail your career, that is cautious, excitable, leisurely, reserved, skeptical, seductive personality traits. That is, you're very attractive, you're charismatic. That is, you're bold. People like bold people. You send terrorists into my country, I will send a hit squad back into your country. People like Narendra Modi. Why? Because he is bold. Yeah. You're colorful, you're imaginative, you're mischievous. Slight mischief, humor. Yeah. You're diligent, you're dutiful. All these are wonderful traits to have in some measure. The problem occurs when they become too emphasized. For example, if you become very bold, you can become reckless. You send terrorists into my country, I'll fire a nuclear missile. That is recklessness. That is not boldness. Yeah. You're colorful. You're so, in love with yourself and your color that you forget about other people. Yeah. You're mischievous. Your mischief gets to such an extent that it becomes painful for other. Mischief in small quantities is all right, but it becomes so bad that it starts sort of causing problems for other people. So, for example, you are excitable, and upside is passion. Excitable people are passionate and enthusiastic. I see that passionate guy. I want him in my team. The downside is it can be volatile, heavy mood swings. Yeah, and you can be sort of cautious. Cautious people are good. They're careful and they're precise. But they can also be risk averse and indecisive. Yeah? So mischief is charming, pursuant, risk tolerant, but they're also impulsive and they're manipulative. So this might be a little heavy for you to understand, but please understand that anything so it's good to drink 1 liter of water a day. Is it good to drink 10 liters of water a day? Like that. Yeah. It's good to eat 1 banana. Should you eat 50 bananas? Some fellow went and ate 100 eggs because he wanted to build his muscles or something. So is it a good idea? Not necessarily. Yeah. Moderation is the name of the game, and people want moderate. The other day I had a very interesting, and I will mention it, a very interesting episode. I was conducting a meeting in my cabin, and there was this chap, full suit and all. He walked in and he wanted me to come out. I didn't know who this guy was, so I said, okay, I'm in a meeting. Can we do this later? He was very angry that I was not coming out of cabin. Then he entered my cabin and said something about, he was talking about parking, his car parking. So I tried to tell him several times that I don't take care of parking for Dayanand Sagar University. I'm the dean for the business school. And rightfully so. He wouldn't listen. He kept at it. And finally, after about 7, 8, 10 minutes, with great difficulty, I got him out of my cabin and sent him on his way. In the meantime, he told me several things of how he's connected to important people and so on and so forth, and how I should be afraid. But interestingly, I was pretty calm. I just, fobbed him off and then sent him on his way. My team was very upset. They said, sir, you were very calm. You should have hammered him and sent him. Yeah. Should I have done that? Not in a professional setting. Yeah. So why did they tell me? Because they have this idea that I'm a very bold, courageous captain type of guy, and I should have jumped from my seat and slammed him one and thrown him out of my. So they have got a picture in their own head about how I should behave. But I am now much older and more wise, and I know where to what is recklessness and what is the difference between being reckless and being bold. So something that is good in small measures can become very, very dangerous if it goes out of control. So, okay, again, all this, right? We'll talk about it. So some other personality traits are things like core self-evaluation. That is, what do you think about yourself? When you get up in the morning and brush your teeth, in the mirror. You have a mirror, right? All of you, I assume. When you see yourself in a mirror, are you happy with what you see? I don't like this reflection. I should have been like that guy. I should be living Shah Rukh Khan's life, or I should be living somebody else's life. I don't like what I see. So that is core self. And if you don't have a strong core self evaluation, you can actually have problems, right? If you intrinsically don't like your self, you sort of hate yourself. There are several people like that, and then they are borderline depressive, and then they have serious problems. Self monitoring is again very important. So self monitoring is, all of you must have gone to say um, some funeral somewhere, somebody, or you heard news that somebody died, and you don't like this person. He was a kind of an ass, and you don't like this person, and the person died. Now, do you jump up and say, "Oh, very good, excellent, he died"? Do you do that? That is what is called normal people have control on their behavior. Self monitoring is very important. I had a captain who was a brilliant man. Um, he was very good at his job, charismatic, spoke well, very funny, mischievous. All those traits were there in good measure. His problem was he didn't monitor, and there was an emergency. We had a breakdown of the ship, and we were losing money, and all our bosses were there, and a meeting was going on, and he cracked a joke, and nobody was amused because the the ship was bleeding money, and we were not working, and nobody was amused at the captain, who is supposedly the most senior guy and supposed to be owner's representative on a ship. He was cracking a joke when the situation warranted that everybody is serious and giving their best shot. He was sacked on the spot, sent home. Yeah. So self monitoring, and the people in the armed forces are taught this first. Suppose a senior officer, how do you behave? Suppose there's a junior guy in your presence, how do you behave? How do you behave with your colleagues? How do you behave with your colleague's wife? Yeah. So, one of the big offenses in the armed forces is um, um, stealing the affections of the wife of a brother officer. That is having an affair, in simple terms. You will get kicked out. You will be court-martialed if something like that happens in the armed forces. So monitoring of behavior is very critical. Unfortunately, they don't teach you that too well in the corporate world. So people behave in a lot of weird manners and then get away with it. Yeah. So, for example, people who are unable to monitor their behavior also have, say, romances or affairs in the office. Everybody knows it can't be done, should not be done, but they're not able to keep a check on their behavior, emotions, and so on and so forth. So self-monitoring is very important. Proactive personality is people who identify opportunities, show initiative, take action, and persevere until meaningful change. Can you hang in there? Yeah, is very, very critical, which is one of the most important things in today's world for success in an organization. So your adversity, enthusiasm, all are attached to a proactive personality where you sort of are very kind of connected with what is happening. You're involved and you want to do well. Okay, we'll take a break there. We'll come back in about 1:15 minutes. All of you, please do whatever you do in the break. We shall return. Any questions? Any questions? Any questions online? Don't think so.
Sir, I have one question, Murli.
Yes, please.
Sir, is personality is also depends on the time and place of the birth,
Yes,
or
yes.
something like a astrology, birth charts kind of
I
thing?
wouldn't know. I'm not an expert in astrology, but definitely there is a connection between your genetics, your DNA, parents, and so on and so forth. I would like to reserve my comments on astrology because I don't know enough of astrology.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Do you believe in astrology? Murli,
Somewhat, sir. Yes, sir. Somewhat.
you believe. Okay, fine. So good for you. I mean, I will tell you of a very interesting incident I had several years ago after we come back from the break. Or maybe I'll tell it to you now before we can think about it. So this was my, when I was doing my master's examination, and that exam would have made me captain. I mean, it would give me access to become captain. I would not have become captain, but it would have given me access. And so these are tough exams. You have 10 papers in 5 days, morning, afternoon, not like every exam has 1 week gap and so on and so forth. And then it's followed by a tough viva. So one exam, what happened was I made a mistake, and the pass mark for that exam was 80%. Unfortunately, the pass mark. I made a mistake, so I was in a hurry. I had to get back quickly, and I was doing that question. And the last question turned up. It was plotting a journey. I remember very clearly between Bombay and Southampton. I had to chart a journey and plot it on a chart paper, several charts. And I read that question quickly. I had little time, and I knew if I didn't do it, I would fail. So I set off. And unfortunately, the sailing time was 6 p.m. I took it as 6 a.m. That means many things would have got reversed or moved around by 12 hours and so on and so forth. I finished the problem. I only realized later on. And I was very distraught, worried. So my father in Bengaluru said that there is a guy who's a good astrologer and he will sort of tell you. So we set off. And he lived next to an old temple, in Nagaraj Nagar. Mr. Shetty, can you mute please, unless you have a question? Mr. Shetty. Shetty is not there. Okay. So when we went there, we had taken horoscope and all that, and we went there. This guy was sitting, he looked at me and he rattled off. 15 minutes he spoke non-stop. He said that, look, I'm sure he's never seen a ship in his life before. He's never gone out of Tyagaraj Nagar maybe. But he said, you work on a ship, you work on water, you have come here because you goofed up one question in a exam, you have 10 papers, stuff which he could never have known. And he said that, but you will pass. You will pass, but your promotion to captain will get held up because along with you, one more fellow will pass and they don't want to make him captain. So you will also get him on the dot. So that, my friend, is the story of astrology.
Yes, sir.
And
Thank you.
while I would
Interesting.
not lay my life on it, that was my personal experience. Now we shall go and have a break.
Thank you, sir.
それを持て。それを持て。ピックアップ。持ってこい。持ち上げろ。Lift. Lift it. Over your head. If he drops it, shoot him. Come on, boy. Come on, Louie. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Mirna. Mirna. Mirna! Don't look at.
Okay. So we'll go back to the PPT. So fundamentally, what personality trait do you think you saw there from Louis Zamperini? Bold, okay. What else? What is the most important thing? Determined, yes. What else? Next. Very stable, yes. Next.
Never give up.
Never give up, absolutely. So the
Same.
movie, yeah, go ahead. So the movie, and they're talking about it today. So I said adversity, ability to face adversity and not give up is a very important trait for the next, say, 50, 60 years. I mean, I think it's always been there. So eventually, of course, the Japanese were defeated. The Zamperini came home and he sort of, like I said, died last year at 91. But you should watch this movie called Unbroken. The movie says, the title says Unbroken. He could not be broken. Whatever was difficulty was thrown at him, he sort of overcame it. So we'll move on to quickly the motivation concepts from personality. And of course, personality affects how motivated we are as individuals and so on and so forth. Why is being motivated very important? Motivated individuals seem to have better job satisfaction levels. They seem to work better. They're more emotionally stable, and they are sort of stay longer with organizations. So obviously, and ability for people to sort of be motivated and be more productive or high performing individuals is very important for organizations. So what are some of the basic tenets of motivation? Motivation is the process that accounts for an individual's intensity, direction, and persistence of effort towards attaining a goal. So it's intensity, direction, and persistence. Again, yeah, we talked about persistence. So persistence comes up everywhere almost. How persistent you are, how long can you hang in there, take a beating, and so on and so forth. The level of motivation varies both between individuals and within individuals at different times. So how motivated is your team? So you can have a group of highly skilled people coming together, but if there is no team dynamics or they're not motivated, then the team is not going to perform. And we've seen it several times. Yeah, you can have people with the best equipment, with the best knowledge, with the best ideas, the best skills. They're beaten by less well-endowed teams simply because these teams are more motivated. They've got that sort of, so if you look at the 1983 World Cup win the India had, nobody gave India a chance. But I think they were highly motivated. They had a captain who would step up whenever it was required. Kapil Dev played a major role, and he motivated his team to do much better than what they were actually. Man to man, maybe the West Indies were, and the West Indies proved it. In the next 3-4 months, they thrashed India in India. Yeah, but that particular tournament, I think India was very, very motivated, that team. So the three key elements of motivation are intensity, direction, and persistence. So one of the first early motivation theories is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Again, if you look at Hindu philosophy, talks about something similar, and it's Maslow's guru and teacher was a man who was deeply involved with Indian philosophy. So I'm not surprised that he picked it up from there. But Maslow's hierarchy of needs is one of the first motivation theories that came out of the scientific world after some amount of research in the United States. And Maslow said that at the bottom level, and the thing about Maslow's hierarchy is people have to go in order. You can't certainly jump from physiological needs to self-actualization or esteem. So what did Maslow say? Maslow said that at a very basic level, people require things to keep them going. And what is that? Roti, kapda, makan. So is it the physiological need? So you can't, when a person is starving or he doesn't have clothes or doesn't have to live, anything to live, you come and tell him some great theories about, inspirational theories about how he can go to the Mars and so on and so forth, or he can go to Mars is not really relevant. The person needs, a greater, he needs to be taken care of at the physiological needs level before the person can go to the next level, that is safety and security. So again, after a person has food, clothing, shelter, and so on and so forth, he or she looks for safety and security. That is, how safe is where are you from? Which place? Okay. So, I did a study some time back and I talked to a lot of ladies. I said, would you like to, if you had to choose between working in Bengaluru or Delhi, where would you work? So some of the ladies, any thoughts? Suppose you had to choose between Bangalore and Delhi, where would you work? So if you can see, there is some connection to the safety and security part of it. And if you ask several ladies, they'll say that we find this place maybe relatively more safer than Delhi or Gurugram and so on and so forth. And so we want to work here. So safety and security is an important part of human psyche. And Maslow put it after physiological needs. Social belongingness, or after all, human beings are social beings. We want to be part of a team, group, community, tribe, state. So if you go outside Karnataka, you'll find all the Kannadigas will get together and have some festival and make some food. And it is not so evident within the state, maybe. Yeah, they don't really care. Similarly with other people, if they come to a foreign place, they would like to get together because people want to sort of congregate, social belongingness. So you have clubs and so on and so forth in organizations as well. Teams, groups, people want to be part of a study group, quality group, focus group, whatever. And then they want recognition. So he called it esteem. People want to be recognition. How you recognize good salary, maybe big car, corner office, view of the office, all these things start, reserved parking, and so on and so forth. You're given, or sometimes they give you employee of the week. One badge is put on your, shirt or something like that, or your picture is put on the wall. Employee of the month, employee of the year. You're given an award. All esteem needs are taken care of. And finally, you don't care about anything. I'm not concerned about all these things: esteem, social belongingness, safety, physiological. I am only concerned with what kind of impact I'm making, my job, whether it really makes sense to me anymore. So several of you might actually be in jobs that might not make sense to you, but you are still somewhere here. The roti kapda makan stage. As long as I get enough of money to do these things, I'm good. Yeah. But as you get probably older and these things are taken care of, and you hopefully, not many people are in the self-actualization stage that I can see, but there are some people where things don't really matter anymore. Am I sort of doing some meaningful stuff? How many of you are, anybody's there in this place? Online? Anybody in the self-actualization space? Okay. So, guys online, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
We Yes, can. sir.
Okay, fine. So self-actualization is what we all try to aspire to achieve, where we sort of are not connected. We're not sort of hankering after, I should be recognized, I should have groups and teams, I should be secure. All these levels have passed and we have arrived at the self-actualization stage. So that is Maslow's hierarchy. And so, very interestingly, I was reading an article of Motorola. So one of the first companies that was standalone, was allowed to set up a plant in China, was Motorola. Otherwise, they always had to do a joint venture with a Chinese company. So the CEO of Motorola flew in from the US and he was there, and he was telling the workers that he lined all of them up and he said, if you perform well, we'll send you to the US, maybe we'll send you to Harvard for a course and you can get a certificate from Harvard. So at the end of which one, or he said, any questions? So there were no questions, like all of you. So one old fellow put up his hand and said, I have a question. So he said, yes, what is it? He said, forget the Harvard thing. Will you give us a house? So the point is that the Chinese were still concerned with, several years back, with the physiological needs, that is the house, clothes, and the salary. This American was pitching at somewhere at the, doesn't work. So you must know what to pitch to which particular set of people for you to sort of make a impact. And that's the story. So Maslow's theory is there, it's still there. People read it because it's good common sense. I think you can't dispute it on common sense. Yeah. But Maslow said that you can't jump from one layer to the other layer without having experienced it. That is kind of criticized. Yeah. Next, we had Herzberg. Mr. Herzberg came with Herzberg's two-factor theory, and a very interesting theory. It's also a little complicated, so please pay attention. So Herzberg said that people are either satisfied or dissatisfied. I'm either satisfied with my salary or dissatisfied with my salary. So Herzberg was the first person who said that being either satisfied or dissatisfied has nothing to do with motivation. Yeah, you have to be positively motivated to be motivated. You can't say I'm satisfied, so I'm motivated. He made that distinction, and he said that there are several items that can make you either satisfied or dissatisfied, need not motivate you. Yeah, but there are things that really motivate you, and if they are not there in the job, they can actually demotivate you. So he brought it. So for example, tell me something that you're satisfied with but does not motivate you. Suppose, for example, this classroom is not as nice as it is. Suppose it is shabby and so on. Would you be dissatisfied? I think so, yes. Suppose I give you a more five-star-ish look. Would you be motivated to study? Again, I don't think so. Your satisfaction levels, you're satisfied, that's all. Yeah. So that's what Herzberg was talking about. And he put, interestingly, after a lot of research, he put money into that category. He said if people are not paid enough, they are dissatisfied. But just because you keep giving people more and more money does not mean that they become motivated. Yeah. So that, unfortunately, a lot of companies don't seem to really care about Mr. Herzberg and his research and keep throwing money at people. And eventually they plateau out because they are missing something else. So it brings us to the point as to what are the, and he called them hygiene factors. He said, if you have a lot of them, you are more satisfied. You need not be motivated. Like a good office, like an air conditioned office, like a good table and chair, like good salary. You are satisfied, but you need not be motivated. Yeah. And he called them hygiene factors. And then he said, there are a set of motivators. Unless you give this to people, they are going to be demotivated, and so on and so forth. So what are some of those things that he put in the motivators list? What do you think? Recognition is one. Yeah. Appreciation. Fundamentally, Herzberg found that the greatest motivator is the quality of the job. Yeah. And he said that nothing motivates a person more than the. That's why I can tell you that maybe an army soldier who's getting less than, say, a BPO employee in Bengaluru is far more motivated in a tough terrain, say like the Himalayas or Siachen Glacier or Kargil, than any of these fellows here who want to sleep most of the time. Why is it that that person is so motivated for so little money in tough conditions than somebody who's living in the comfort of Bengaluru and has a warm bed every day and good food, and he seems to be demotivated? So it's a very interesting question to ask. And I think Herzberg explained it by saying that that guy is more motivated because he knows the quality of his job is so much more better. And he feels a sense of purpose. He feels that his job is making an impact on people, the country, and so on and so forth. It's very important. So unless people feel otherwise, whatever money you throw at them or whatever thank God it's Friday parties you give or take them for picnics and so on and so forth, they are going to be satisfied but not motivated. Yeah. So please read up Herzberg's two-factor theory. Very interesting. And then we saw now evolving along the way, and McClelland came up with McClelland's theory of needs. So McClelland said there are three drivers for human beings. Three things all drive all of us. You can actually do a nice test. One is the need for power. How much of power do I have? So if you ask all these police fellows and all that stuff, they will say, I want power. Power to do what? Whack you with a stick or something. Correct? Or make you feel fear. The need for power. Can I punish somebody? Can I sort of make them listen to me? So power is a very intoxicating emotion. So the need for power, the need for achievement. My reason for existence is I want to achieve. I want to achieve something so that people remember me as I sort of go along. Yeah. So yeah. So the need for achievement, and finally the need for affiliation. That is, I want people to like me. How many of you want people to like you? All of us to some extent. Yeah. But very high needs for affiliation, that is, I will do anything to make people like me, will get in the way of progress. So generally, leaders and managers have some control over their need for affiliation. Yeah. Where they're not overly concerned about what people sort of think about them, because their need for achievement is very, very high. Yeah. If you let the need for affiliation or the need for power go out of control, you are actually, in my opinion, barking up the wrong tree. So you can actually do a test and then find out what is your need in life. And particularly, if you have a very high need for affiliation, you should not get into leadership positions, because you will try to make everybody happy, and finally both you, them, and the organization will suffer. So McClelland's theory has had the best support. It has less practical effect than others. Okay, so that's okay. So as long as you understood that McClelland's theory of needs, need for achievement, need for power, and need for affiliation. Yeah. So then you have several other theories, like the self-determination theory, goal-setting theory. So there were other social scientists who came along the way, and Locke said that People are motivated if you give them specific goals, right? And goal should be what? Smart goals. You all know what are smart goals? Must have heard, right? Smart goals, that is, they are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound goals. Yeah, realistic goals, if you are given and told, now this is the goal, go and achieve it, then you are better. There are not too many people who can, just put there and said, go and do what you have to do. Motivate yourself. Yeah. So Locke's goal setting theory talked about how do you set goals and so on and so forth. What is the problem with the goal setting theory? I just not told you the goal setting. What's the problem? Yeah. So people also in today's time and age feel that just being told, go, this is the goal, go and achieve it, is kind of not undemocratic and not really very nice. So you had Peter Drucker's management by objectives. So he said that he just took Locke's theory and said that it has to be discussed with your manager and the subordinate. And once it is discussed, then you come up with a realistic set of goals which are aligned with your organization strategic goals. Yeah, organization strategic goals. Then you have your departmental goals, you have your group or team goals, and you have individual goals. All these should be aligned, and they happen after due discussion between the manager and the subordinate. And then you sort of come up with a you're motivated enough to go and get the job. So how many of you can work if you don't have goals, clear goals? So somebody has been telling you, your parents have been telling you, go to school. So there was a goal, you went to school. Then they said, pay attention in the class, score good marks, get first class, go and do engineering or what, medicine or whatever, and then get a job. So you have always been set a goal. Suppose you take out that person and just they leave you, go and achieve. It's problematic. Yeah. So while it is simple, for people to self-motivate themselves is not so easy. And that was what both Locke and Peter Drucker were trying to say. Okay. Yeah. So self-concordance is whether there's an alignment between an individual's goals and the organization's goals. And then there is a kind of a resonance where, they sort of, so suppose you have a set of goals. Your goal, you are a great table tennis player like me, and you join and say, I want to play table tennis. But your organization is an academic institution. They want to teach students. Is there a concordance with the goals? No. I mean, after all, they didn't select me because I play table tennis. They selected me because I run a good program. So if there is a mismatch of goals, that is why people get, when you go and join a company because of the salary, and there is no alignment of your goals, why you want to work there and what the organization wants. And who's the third party here? One is your requirements, organization requirements. Who's the third person? The boss. The boss also has some requirements, right? Unless these three are in alignment, that's why many people say the boss is bad. Boss says my subordinate is bad because there is no concordance in the goals. You want to achieve something, he wants to achieve something, organization wants to achieve something else. And how do you get this in line? How do you suppose you have this problem, what do you do? Confront and solve it. So, what have I not talked about so far? So we talked about motivation, right? What is in the line of motivation? What is it that I have not talked about so far? What? Organizing. Okay. What else? So a very interesting story which I actually tell in my first class. It's a guy called Vasco da Gama. Vasco da Gama was he was a ship's captain. He had risen up He had become a important guy in Portugal, um, Spain actually, and Portugal and Spain were contiguous those days. And for the end of the 14th century, uh, is a very important time in Europe, because many of you may not be aware that the Portugal and Spain were occupied by the Arabs, yeah, by Arab Muslims in about the 8th or 9th century, and they were there for about 500 years. And except for a small part of northern Spain, much of Portugal and Spain was under their rule. In 500 years, the Christian forces from the north recovered enough to invade Spain from France, to invade Spain and push the Arabs out of Spain back to their own this thing. And they did exactly what the Arabs did. They reconverted everybody into Christianity. But it gave tremendous energy. This whole fighting and change of scenario gave a lot of energy to Europe. And you had people like Columbus who sailed to the Americas and said to have discovered already America already had been discovered. You had a guy who came to India called Vasco da Gama, yeah, who came and settled in Goa. Look, Vasco da Gama came with some 6 ships, and he had a set of people. So about 4 days into the sea, his ship captains came and said, "We have a problem." And what's the problem? The problem is that our soldiers don't want to sail to. Food is, they say the food is bad, the sea is rough, we don't know what we will face in India, and so on. So Vasco da Gama said, okay, call everybody together, I will address. So all the ships were stopped, they were sailing ships, with wind, and they came together, and I assume he had a megaphone or something, he addressed his troops. He said that, tell me, simple, straightforward, got to the point quickly. He said, we are 5 days out, we are the king or the queen of Spain has given us a task of going to India and finding a sea route, because the Arabs were not allowing them to trade with India by land, yeah, through present day Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, and that route was closed. So they had to find a sea route. So they said that, how many of you don't want to go to India? Clearly in your head. 10 people put up their hand and said, we don't want to go to India, we are clear. He said, throw them into the sea. So they were thrown into the sea and they drowned and died. Then he said, how many of you now don't want to go to India? So everybody said what? We are motivated and excited to go to. So organizations also do that. So coercion is a part of, we're ready to negotiate, but beyond a certain point, we will use the stick. If you don't fall in line, which is fear is a good motivator. It keeps people in line and it gets them to do what the organization. That's why you have rules, regulations, policies, punishments, and so on and so forth. Because if you don't have, you will have people like Vasco da Gama sailors who say, I don't want to do something. Yeah. So we talked about goal setting theory. Yeah. So you can talk about, you can look at the management by objectives, that is the company's overall organizational objectives, divisional objectives, departmental objectives, individual objectives. So this is a very cascading set of typically management by objectives. Looks like this. Most organizations will follow this. In a sense, if your goals are not aligned with, and if you're motivated in some other direction, your company wants to go in that direction, you want to go in this direction, what happens? You will be looking for some other job. Yeah. So the idea is to keep people motivated in the lines of the organizational objectives. And unless this exercise is done properly, there's going to be a lot of confusion. Okay. And then finally, there's a guy called Albert Bandura. So Albert Bandura came with what is called as the self-efficacy. So yesterday I was asking, I was asking my students that, if their average placement is say 6 lakhs, freshers who come to the Anand Sagar to do a full-time MBA, and they get 6 lakhs and they push off. They're all very happy. Some get 12 lakhs, 9 lakhs, 10 lakhs. So I was telling them, if you go to Banerghatta Road, parallel road, and go to an institution called the IIMB, what do you think is their average salary? So they came with various figures, and finally, much to their sadness, I told them that the average salary for an IIMB graduate hovers around, say, 24 to 26 lakhs. So the question that I was asking them is that you are at 6 lakhs, he's at 24 lakhs. Is it that that guy is 400% better than you? Why is an organization paying that fellow 400 times more than you get? What's the answer? There is a reason. Why? Do you realistically think he's 400 times better? Percent times better? But why are companies paying them? Companies like where you work, or somebody who comes from an IIT. Why? So Albert Bandura explained it well. He said what is called as efficacy. Efficacy is, I have the confidence to do any job. Yeah, I have the confidence. So my wife asks me sometimes, when she's in a good mood, how did you manage to become from a ship's captain, become a dean? Again, efficacy. Do you have the confidence to take up new projects, new jobs, and get it done? I can tell you, those guys have it, these guys don't have it. If I throw them out into the open and say, there's a new job, go and take that project and get it done, that IIM fellow will find a way to get it done. This guy will give up even before the game has started. I remember very clearly that, when I played cricket for Andhra Pradesh at the under 19 level, because my father used to work there at that time. If say we faced a powerful team like Karnataka or something, the game was lost even before it began. What you fellows will do? They will beat you and things like that. Today it has changed. Today people work on their psychology. They don't give up so easily. We'll fight. We'll see what happens. How much better are you than me? And Albert Bandura said that for a person to be highly motivated, you need that efficacy, or you need that belief, self-belief that I can do this. I'm going to win today and I can have the job done. People who come from top flight universities, say the IITs, the IIMs, have that. Maybe because they have passed a tough exam. Several other people just give up very easily. So companies like large companies, I was asking somebody, Google, they don't care where you came from after 5 years. As long as you can show them that you have done some outstanding work. So that ticket size of your degree goes away after about 5-6 years. You are it's gone. But it is very important for initially, because companies believe that if you come from those institutions, you have the confidence to get any job done, which lesser institutions people run away. You give them sir, why are you giving 5 assignments? Nobody talks language like that. I give you 5, tell these fellows, I give you 5 assignments because you cannot speak English properly. And communication is an important thing when you go for placement. That is why you will have 10 assignments also, till I'm clear that you are good enough to face an interview. People who are motivated don't grumble with work. And companies they figured that one out. So whether individuals can figure that. So they say always grumble. What is so great about that IIT? What is so great is they get paid more. at the end of the day, isn't it? What do you say, my friend? Then they get paid more. And so, how do you create that confidence? That is the important. So, Albert Bandura did some outstanding research, and he said that you must have inactive mastery. You must have mastered your job. How do you do that? How do you master your job? There is no secret. Everybody knows. So people say, sir, case study is difficult. How many times you read it? 3 times. Read it 30 times. It'll come. Yeah. So Bandura said that inactive mastery is practice. Keep practicing till you get mastery over the job. Vicarious modeling is learn from other people, observe. If you want to learn batting, don't go and watch Captain Nagaraj. Watch Sachin Tendulkar. Have a proper, that's why they say have a role model. Yeah. If you want to learn something, don't go and watch Bahubali 2 or 3. Read a good book. Might make more. Or that horrible KGF. So on and so forth. Yeah. Go and read a good book. Get your brain, that machinery to start working. So Bandura said that vicarious modeling is very, you can actually learn a lot by watching the right people. Pick a good role model, listen to them. Instead of watching movie clips on YouTube, watch motivational videos. Watch people who talk. Watch Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, or they're talking about a book. Watch it. Yeah, but people watch all, people know much of this is common sense. But who believes in common sense? Yeah. So vicarious modeling is important. Verbal persuasion. Verbal persuasion is, you know, so like I said, coming back to my famous master's exam, I was very nervous. Young guy, I was about to become captain. I was just about 28 or 29. So my father said that every day night before you sleep, picture yourself passing the exam and celebrating. Yeah, in your own mind. Positively talk to yourself. Instead of saying that I'm going to fail, say I'm going to pass. And miraculously, I did pass. Yeah. So verbal persuasion is, instead of saying every time I'm a failure, I'm going to fail, this class is not going to go well, this exam I'm going to fail, twist it around and say, I am very smart, I have done well, I have studied well, and you have to study well. Huh? And then say that I'm going to be successful at what I'm going to do. So verbal persuasion actually works well for several people. And this is not based on Sri Bandura's, he had a dream in the night, on solid research. And finally, arousal. That is, how excited are you about a particular job? Are you sleepy? I see kids in the morning when I go for my walk, so sad, they are standing there for their bus. The life has been drained out of them at the age of 6 or 7. They don't want to go to school. There's nothing excited about. Do you feel excited to come to work? Um, Excited to be in a class, take a class, and so on and so on. If you're not, there is something wrong. And you're going to have a problem in motivating yourself. So, if you're not excited about a job, please go and find a new job. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem in how you motivate yourself. So so obviously you see, that's why you see cricket teams, they go into that huddle before the game. Have you seen? Why do you think they're going to the huddle? They're talking to themselves, talking to each other, they're arousing themselves. You obviously don't want to do that when you go into a chess game or something. You want to be more calm and so on. And I have a nice video which I generally show. We'll see if we can get Imtiaz to come and start it for us. But I find this theory fascinating because Bandura brought several things together which make perfect sense in how do you sort of motivate yourself. Yeah. And motivate other people. Just can you come here?
Yeah, sir, we are coming, sir. Yeah.
Any questions that you guys might have?
Sir, one question from online.
Tell me.
Sir, what would be the major difference between motivation and inspiration, sir, from as per your
So inspiration is generally you look outwards. You're inspired by somebody or something. Say you're inspired. You're inspired by Tendulkar or Steve Jobs or Narayan Murthy or Azim Premji or Shah Rukh Khan or whatever. Uh, but motivation is very internal to you. How motivated are you to do something or achieve something? And um, so I think the difference is
Is-
one is external, the other one is internal, mostly.
okay. So motivational is for the temporary or the achieve small tasks or goals, or inspiration is in a long-term life.
Not necessarily. You can also be motivated to achieve big things.
Okay. Okay, sir. Got it.
You can be inspired by small people, and you can be motivated for big things. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
but find an inspirational figure for yourself in life, Murli,
Yes.
and be motivated to achieve something by following some theory. Set goals, learn from good people, achieve mastery, and I'm sure you will achieve many things.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I want to show you a video, and so it'll take a minute or two before we end the class. And Mhm. Not this. This one. So I wanted to show you. So fundamentally, we all believe that human beings are the only people who have personality. Do you believe that? Motivated. You think animals can also have personality and be motivated? Animals. So this is a very interesting video. It's about one of the greatest racing two horses. It's called Seabiscuit and War Admiral. So 1 minute. So the story is generally that War Admiral was a big horse. Seabiscuit was a damaged horse. It was kind of battered, bruised, and there's the young jockey who got it. Very interesting. Let's watch this. What happens here?
Now, shut the door. Okay. You know how Smith wants you to fight for the lead by the first turn?
Yeah. We were working with that bell. I was a little nervous about that.
No, it's fine. But you gotta give it up on the backstretch.
Give it up.
Give him back the lead. He fights for it, Georgie. If you bring him head to head with that other horse and he looks him in the eye, there's no way he loses that race. You just hold him through that final turn and let him get a good look at the Admiral. Then let him go. It's not in his feet, Georgie. It's right here.
Now back him off, son. Back him off. Back him off.
Sir, we are not able to see the screen.
Not able to?
Come on, Georgie, don't fool around.
Sure hope you're right, Red. Here we go. Easy, Bob. God damn it, Johnny. Close, Papa. Easy, Bob. That's it. Ooh. Not long now, Pops.
Do it. Do it now. Come on, George.
Turn him loose. Turn him loose.
Do it now, George.
So long, Charlie. Yes! Yes! Whoa! Yes!
Okay, stop. So that is supposedly the greatest race ever in the history of American horse racing. So where that Seabiscuit, damaged horse, bet that bigger war admiral. Fundamentally, what is he saying? He's saying that this horse likes a challenge, and let him have a good look at the other horse. And if that happens, so he says that his power is not in his feet, it is in his heart. And so animals also have personality. They are also motivated. They like challenges and so on and so forth. But I think it is one of the most important things that drives human endeavor, motivation, and the ability to inspire and be inspired. Okay, gentlemen and ladies, thank you very much. Any questions? So next week onwards, next class onwards, I will move to the other section and you will have Professor Sanjay coming here. Yeah. So see you guys around.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any
Yes, sir.
questions? Anybody has any questions? How is the assignment going?
Started off, sir, and maybe need more 1 week more times, but we try to complete.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Good. Right. Okay, then what is the class in the afternoon that you guys have? Professor.
MM.
Okay.
Marketing
MM, I
management.
think. MM.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, MM. Okay, then see you guys around. Have a good lunch and turn up for the afternoon class.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thank you, sir.